James had always thought of his home as a safe and quiet place. He had moved to this suburban neighborhood a few years ago, seeking peace away from the endless noise of the city. The streets were lined with trees that swayed gently in the wind, and the neighbors all seemed friendly enough. Life was simple, routine, and comfortable. Every morning he would make himself a cup of coffee, step onto his porch, and watch the sun rise over the horizon. Every evening he would return home tired but content, knowing he had a space where he could rest and feel secure. But that evening, something unusual caught his attention. As he walked toward his car, the last golden rays of the sun lighting up the driveway, his eyes fell on a small metal hatch embedded in the concrete. It was round, slightly rusted around the edges, and yet somehow it seemed out of place. He had walked down this driveway hundreds of times, yet he had never noticed it before. For a moment, James thought he might be imagining things. Maybe the angle of the sun had created a shadow that made it look like a hatch, but as he stepped closer, the outline of the metal became clearer. It was real, and it was definitely there. He knelt down, brushing his fingers over the cold metal surface. It felt solid, heavy, and ancient. James frowned. He had bought this house from a local family who had lived here for decades. They had never mentioned any secret underground passage. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Why would there be a hatch in the middle of his driveway? And how had he never seen it before? Curiosity began to battle with caution in his mind. He pressed his hand against it, trying to push it open. It didn't budge. The edges were tight, almost like it had been sealed intentionally. He tapped it lightly, and a hollow sound echoed from beneath, confirming that there was indeed a space below. The first wave of excitement hit him. Could it be some old storage, a cellar, or maybe a utility access that had been covered over time? He imagined opening it and finding forgotten treasures, old letters, or even antiques hidden away. The thought made his pulse quicken, but then fear crept in. What if it wasn't empty? What if someone or something was hiding down there? His heart began to pound as he stepped back, instinctively reaching for his phone. He had never been in a situation like this before. James took a deep breath and tried to steady his shaking hands. He had to make a decision. Ignoring it was an option, but the nagging curiosity refused to let him walk away. He called his neighbor first, hoping for some explanation. "Hey, Sarah, do you know anything about a hatch in my driveway?" he asked. His voice was calm, but his chest felt tight. Sarah paused for a moment. "A hatch? In your driveway? No. I've never seen one. Are you sure it's not part of some utility work?" James shook his head. "I don't think so. It looks old, like it's been here for a long time. I don't know what to do." Sarah hesitated, then said, "Maybe you should call the authorities just in case. You don't want to risk it yourself." James nodded, even though she couldn't see him. That was exactly what he was thinking, too. With a trembling hand, he dialed 911. As he waited for someone to answer, he stared at the hatch, feeling a mixture of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. When the operator answered, James explained everything as clearly as he could. I found a metal hatch in the middle of my driveway. I don't know how long it's been here, and I'm not sure what's underneath. It's dark and I don't know. I'm scared." The operator's voice was calm, professional. "We'll send someone over right away. Please stay back and do not attempt to open it further. Help is on the way." James hung up and stepped back. His mind raced. What could possibly be down there? He thought of old movies he had watched where people discovered hidden tunnels, some filled with treasure, others with danger. The contrast between excitement and fear made it hard to stand still. Within minutes, he saw flashing lights approaching from the street. A police car pulled up first, followed by a fire truck. Officers jumped out, assessing the situation quickly but calmly. James felt both relief and a fresh wave of anxiety. He wanted to know what was down there, but the thought of finding something dangerous made his stomach twist. The lead officer, a tall man with a calm demeanor, approached him. "Mr. James, can you show us the hatch?" James nodded and led him to the driveway. The officer crouched down, examining the metal circle carefully. "Interesting," he murmured. "We'll have a firefighter open it. Please step back." James did as instructed, standing a few feet away as the firefighter approached with a sturdy crowbar. The man carefully wedged it into the edge of the hatch, slowly prying it open. James held his breath. The hatch lifted with a creak, revealing a narrow, dark passage that seemed to descend straight into the earth. A damp smell wafted out, earthy and cold. James felt a chill run down his spine. He wanted to look, but he also didn't want to see too much. He watched as the firefighter shone a strong flashlight into the opening. The light revealed walls of old concrete, narrow steps that spiraled downward, and shadows that seemed to move as the light flickered. One officer spoke into his radio. "We're going in. Mr. James, please stay back." James nodded, though every instinct in him screamed to follow. He felt a strange connection to the unknown passage, as if it was calling him, teasing him, daring him to uncover its secrets. As the team descended, James's mind wandered. How could this have been hidden for so long? Had the previous owners known about it? Why hadn't it been mentioned in any property documents? And most importantly, what if someone or something was still down there? Minutes felt like hours. James's imagination ran wild. He thought of hidden treasures, long-lost family possessions, maybe even forgotten diaries or letters. But then darker thoughts surfaced. Could it be dangerous? Could someone be trapped down there? His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. The officer returned to the top, holding a small crate. James's curiosity spiked, mixed with fear. "What is it?" he asked, stepping a little closer. The officer shook his head. "We're not sure yet. Looks like some old storage. Probably nothing dangerous, but we'll need to investigate further." James exhaled slowly, his hands trembling. Relief washed over him, but the mystery remained. He wanted to know what was inside, yet part of him wished he would never have discovered the hatch at all. As the evening turned to night, James couldn't stop thinking about the tunnel. He stared at the driveway, imagining the lives of people who might have used it long ago. The thought of history, hidden just beneath his feet, made him feel both small and connected to something greater. For the first time in years, James felt a deep curiosity that mingled with his fear. He realized that his quiet, simple life had been interrupted by a secret from the past. And though he didn't yet know what he would find, he understood that this discovery would change him in ways he could not yet imagine. The hatch remained open that night, a dark circle in the middle of the driveway, glowing faintly under the streetlights. James stood there for a long time, silently watching, feeling the weight of unknown stories waiting just below. That night, James went to bed with his mind racing, images of shadows, crates, and old letters dancing in his imagination. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of steps descending into darkness, of voices calling from long ago, and of secrets waiting patiently to be discovered. By morning, James knew one thing for certain: his life had changed. The safe, predictable world he had known was no longer the same. Beneath the driveway lay a secret, a mystery, and a connection to the past that he could not ignore. And though fear lingered, so did a spark of anticipation, a curiosity that whispered, "There is more to discover, and it is waiting for you." The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet neighborhood when James stepped outside again. The events of the previous evening played over and over in his mind. The metal hatch in his driveway, the dark passage below, the strange crate the firefighter had brought up. Everything seemed surreal. Yet it was real. The ordinary driveway he had walked over hundreds of times had become the threshold to a mystery he could no longer ignore. The police and fire department had left after inspecting the hatch briefly. They said it appeared to be part of an old underground storage system, possibly left over from construction decades ago. They marked it for follow-up inspection and told James to be cautious. But even as they drove away, James could not stop thinking about the narrow passage that stretched into darkness beneath his feet. He decided to walk around his yard, trying to distract himself. The morning air was crisp, filled with the scent of dew-soaked grass and the faint aroma of blooming flowers from his neighbors' gardens. Birds chirped in the trees and a soft breeze rustled the leaves. Everything looked peaceful, ordinary. Yet in his mind shadows lingered, shadows of the unknown hidden below the hatch. As James walked back to the driveway, he noticed how different it felt. The hatch was no longer just a patch of metal embedded in concrete. It was a boundary, a portal to something he could not yet understand. His fingers itched to lift it again to peer into the darkness, but he forced himself to step back. He reminded himself of what the police officer had said: "Do not attempt to explore it yourself." Still, curiosity gnawed at him. He thought about the crate the firefighter had carried out, filled with old items. What could it contain? Letters, photographs, diaries? perhaps even forgotten treasures from a family who had lived here long before him. James's imagination began to wander. He pictured old stories buried beneath his driveway, waiting patiently for someone to discover them. Later that morning, there was a knock on his front door. James opened it to see one of the officers from last night, a woman with a calm, professional demeanor. "Good morning, Mr. James," she said. "We received reports about the hatch last night. I'm here to take a closer look and document everything." James stepped aside to let her in. "Please, come in. I was just thinking about it again." His voice betrayed a mix of excitement and anxiety. The officer introduced her team, and soon more personnel arrived, including firefighters with equipment designed to safely explore underground spaces. They had brought strong lights, ropes, and protective gear. James watched as they prepared to descend into the narrow passage. "Mr. James, we'll be going down to inspect the tunnel and the storage area," the officer explained. "We need to ensure it's safe and to see what these old crates contain. Please stay back for your safety." James nodded, stepping back onto the grass. He felt torn between wanting to know everything and obeying their instructions. He was standing on the edge of a secret, and part of him wished he could just jump in and explore, while another part begged him to stay safe. The team lifted the hatch fully and shone powerful lights into the darkness below. The passage seemed to go down for a long distance. Its walls were lined with old concrete, damp and cold. Water dripped from the ceiling, forming small puddles on the floor. The sound echoed through the narrow space, creating an eerie atmosphere. As the firefighters began their descent, James noticed the careful precision in their movements. Each step was deliberate, each gesture measured. They carried flashlights and ropes, checking for loose stones, weak spots, and potential hazards. James felt a sense of awe mixed with anxiety. This was a world hidden beneath his home, one he had never imagined existed. While the team explored, James's thoughts drifted to the previous owners of the house. Who had built this tunnel? Why was it left forgotten? Had it been used for storage or for something else entirely? His imagination created countless possibilities, some thrilling, others frightening. Hours seemed to pass as the team moved deeper into the passage. Occasionally, one would emerge, carrying objects to the surface. James watched as they brought up crates, boxes, and bundles wrapped in old cloth. Each item seemed fragile, ancient, yet full of life in its own way. He could not help but feel a connection to the unknown people who had left these belongings behind. One firefighter emerged holding a small wooden crate. Dust covered its surface, and its corners were worn from age. James felt his heart leap. "What's inside?" he asked quietly, stepping closer but still maintaining a safe distance. The firefighter shook his head. "We're not opening it here. We'll examine it safely in the truck. It looks like personal belongings, letters, photographs, and possibly journals. We want to be careful with them." James exhaled, both relieved and frustrated. Relief that there was nothing immediately dangerous. Frustration that he could not yet see the contents. But he understood. These items were a bridge to the past, delicate and valuable. As the day wore on, neighbors began to notice the activity. Some came out to watch, whispering to each other about the strange discovery in James's driveway. Children peeked from behind fences, curious and wide-eyed. James felt a mixture of pride and unease. His quiet home had become the center of attention, all because of a hidden hatch. The officer returned to speak with him. "Mr. James, we've confirmed that the tunnel is stable, but we still need to catalog everything properly. We'll be taking the crates for examination. Based on their condition, we may contact historical experts. It's possible that these items belong to a family who lived here decades ago. Your home has a history, and you've just uncovered a part of it." James nodded, trying to absorb her words. History. The word echoed in his mind. He had always thought of his home as just a place to live, but now he realized it was more than that. It held stories, memories, and lives from the past, hidden beneath the surface. As the team packed up for the day, James stayed near the hatch, staring down into the darkness. He thought about the people who had once used this tunnel. He imagined a family moving boxes down the stairs, a child's laughter echoing off the walls, letters being written and carefully stored. He felt a strange connection to them even though he had never met them. The experience had awakened something in him, a curiosity, a sense of wonder, and an appreciation for the unseen layers of life. He realized that beneath the ordinary surfaces of the world, there were hidden stories waiting to be discovered. That evening, James sat on his porch, staring at the driveway. The hatch, now open slightly, glinted under the soft light of the street lamps. He felt a strange combination of fear and excitement. Fear of the unknown, excitement for the discovery. He knew that this was just the beginning. The crates, the letters, the journals, they were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be put together. As darkness fell, James made a silent promise to himself. He would not simply ignore the past. He would learn from it, understand it, and honor the lives that had come before him. The hatch was more than a mystery. It was a doorway, a connection, and a reminder that every place has stories worth discovering. Sleep came slowly that night. James's dreams were filled with stairs descending into darkness, shadows that whispered secrets and faint echoes of laughter from long ago. He felt a sense of anticipation, a quiet hope that he was about to uncover something truly meaningful. By morning, James was determined. He would work with the authorities, follow their instructions, and explore the tunnel safely. But he also knew that his life had changed forever. The ordinary, quiet home he had once cherished now held secrets, memories, and stories, and he was ready to uncover them one step at a time. The hatch remained in the driveway, a silent reminder that the past was always present, waiting patiently for someone to notice, and James was ready to notice. The next morning, James woke with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The previous day's events had left him restless, his mind filled with questions. Who had built the underground tunnel? Why had it been hidden? And what secrets lay in those crates and boxes? After a quick breakfast, James returned to the driveway. The hatch had been carefully secured by the authorities, but they had left it slightly open for inspection. The morning sun reflected faintly off the metal, creating a soft glow that made the opening seem like a portal to another world. James could feel his heartbeat quicken. He was standing on the edge of history, and today he would begin to understand it. Within an hour, the police and firefighters returned, bringing experts from the local historical society. They were curious about what had been found in the tunnel and wanted to examine it carefully. James watched as the team prepared equipment, flashlights, gloves, crates, and even a small ladder to make it easier to descend into the narrow space. The lead officer addressed James. "We're going down today to catalog everything. It may take hours. Please remain on the side and don't interfere." James nodded, though his curiosity was nearly overwhelming. He stayed back, observing the careful coordination of the team. They had clearly done this before. Each step, each movement was precise and deliberate. As the hatch was lifted completely, a rush of cold air came up from below, carrying a faint scent of earth and old wood. The passage looked even more mysterious in the daylight. The walls were rough and damp, with tiny streaks of mineral deposits running down like frozen tears. James shivered, both from the chill and the anticipation. One by one, the experts descended. James held his breath as they went deeper, their lights casting long shadows that danced on the tunnel walls. The narrow steps seemed endless, spiraling down into darkness. He could hear the faint echoes of footsteps, the soft clinking of metal, and the occasional sound of water dripping. After what felt like forever, a firefighter emerged, carrying a small, dusty wooden crate. Carefully, he placed it on the driveway. James's eyes widened as the officer opened it. Inside were letters neatly stacked and tied with faded ribbons, a few photographs with curled edges, and a small journal with a worn leather cover. The officer looked at James. "These are personal belongings. They seem to have been stored here decades ago. We'll examine them carefully, but you may want to see what's inside. They could give us a glimpse into the lives of the family who lived here before you." James felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. He knelt down, picking up one of the letters. The paper was brittle and the ink had faded, but the handwriting was elegant, flowing and personal. He read the first lines quietly. "Dear Mother, I hope this letter finds you in good health. Today was bright and cheerful, and I spent the morning tending the garden. Father says the tunnel will be useful for storing our winter supplies. I wonder if one day someone else will read these words and know about us." James felt a lump in his throat. These were not just objects. They were fragments of real lives frozen in time. He could imagine the writer, a young child perhaps, carefully tying the letters, placing them in a box, and sliding it down the tunnel to keep it safe. He opened the journal next. Its pages were filled with careful handwriting, each entry a window into the past. The first few pages described ordinary life, cooking, cleaning, gardening, but soon deeper stories emerged. There were accounts of birthdays, family trips, and small celebrations that carried so much meaning. James could picture the laughter, the joy, the simple happiness of a family living their everyday life. One photograph caught his attention. It was of a small boy standing in front of a house. His eyes were bright, full of hope and curiosity. The house looked strikingly familiar, almost like James's own home. He traced the outline of the boy with his finger, feeling a connection he could not explain. The team continued to bring up more crates and boxes. Some contained toys, a worn teddy bear, and a small wooden train set. Others held kitchen items, delicate glassware, and old clothing. James was amazed at how personal and intimate these belongings were. Each item told a story, a fragment of someone's life preserved in the shadows of the tunnel. As the day progressed, James learned more from the experts. It seems this tunnel was used primarily for storage, but also as a safe place, one historian explained. During the construction of the neighborhood, families sometimes built hidden areas for valuables or to keep personal belongings safe. What you're seeing here is a remarkable example of that. James nodded, but he couldn't shake a deeper curiosity. He wanted to know the people behind these objects. Who were they? What did they hope for? What dreams and fears did they carry? Each letter and photograph hinted at stories he could only begin to imagine. One letter in particular drew his attention. It was written by the father of the family. "My children, remember that even when life seems ordinary, there is always beauty in the small moments. Treasure the laughter, hold each other close, and never forget where you came from." James felt tears prick his eyes. It was as if the man had spoken directly to him, through the veil of time. He realized that these messages were not just memories. They were lessons, reminders of what it meant to live fully, even in simplicity. The firefighter returned with another crate, heavier than the others. James stepped back as it was carefully opened. Inside were old tools, a few household items, and a small wooden box. When opened, the box revealed a delicate pendant and a tiny key. James held the pendant in his hand, marveling at its craftsmanship. It was simple, yet beautiful, and seemed to carry a weight far greater than its size. He wondered who had worn it, who had treasured it, and why it had been stored in this hidden place. The thought of someone long gone entrusting their most cherished belongings to the tunnel filled him with a strange reverence. The hours passed quickly, yet James felt like time had slowed. Each object brought him closer to the lives of the people who had lived here before him. He could almost hear their voices in the shadows, whispering their hopes, their joys, and their memories. By late afternoon, most of the items had been carefully cataloged and packed for further study. The experts thanked James for his patience and cooperation and assured him that the tunnel would be preserved as a historical site. But James felt that the true discovery had already occurred, not the objects themselves, but the connection he now felt to the people of the past. As the team packed up their equipment and closed the hatch, James lingered, looking down into the darkness one last time. He imagined the family descending the narrow steps decades ago, carrying their precious belongings, securing them safely in the hidden passage. He imagined the boy in the photograph running through the house, laughing, playing, and growing up surrounded by love. A strange warmth filled James's chest. He realized that the discovery had changed him. It had awakened a deep appreciation for life, for family, and for the small moments that often go unnoticed. He felt a renewed sense of connection, not just to the past, but to his own present. That evening, James sat on his porch, holding the pendant he had glimpsed in the crate. The neighborhood was quiet, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink. He felt a sense of peace, mixed with the excitement of knowing that there were still stories to uncover. The tunnel beneath his driveway was no longer just a hidden passage. It was a bridge between generations, a repository of memories, and a testament to the lives that had come before him. And James knew that he was now a part of that story, connected to the past in a way he had never imagined. As darkness fell, James made a quiet promise to himself. He would honor the stories of the family who had lived here. He would remember their lessons, cherish their memories, and carry forward the spirit of their lives. The tunnel had revealed more than objects. It had revealed the heart of a family, and in doing so, it had touched his own heart as well. That night, As James drifted to sleep, he dreamed not of fear or darkness, but of laughter, love, and warmth. He dreamed of letters being written, pendants being cherished, and families living lives filled with simple, profound joy. And in those dreams he felt a sense of connection and wonder that would stay with him forever. The morning after the discovery, James felt a strange mix of excitement and restlessness. He had spent the previous day watching the experts uncover the hidden belongings in his driveway tunnel. He had seen letters, photographs, journals, and even a delicate pendant, tiny treasures from the lives of people who had lived in the house long before him. Yet, while the objects themselves were fascinating, James realized that the true discovery was the connection he now felt to the past. He walked slowly around his yard, his eyes constantly drawn to the hatch. The neighborhood was waking up, birds singing and neighbors starting their routines, but James felt apart from it all. His mind was filled with thoughts of the family who had left these items behind. He could almost imagine them moving carefully down the narrow tunnel, carrying their possessions and storing them for safekeeping. Each object was a piece of their lives, a fragment of memories preserved in time. James's curiosity was now more personal than ever. He wanted to know about the people behind these belongings, their hopes, their fears, their joys, and their sorrows. He had already read letters from a child describing ordinary days and small celebrations, and he had seen photographs capturing fleeting moments of happiness. But he wondered, what were the bigger stories? What challenges had this family faced? What dreams had they cherished? Later that day, a historian from the local society returned to the house. She was carrying several folders and a small notebook filled with notes from her initial inspection of the crates. "Mr. James, we've begun cataloging the items, and there are some fascinating things we'd like you to see," she said, smiling warmly. "We've found letters spanning many years, photographs of the family at different stages of life, and even some small personal items that seem very meaningful." James nodded eagerly. He followed her to the driveway where some of the crates had been carefully reopened. She handed him a photograph of a young boy, no older than 8 or 9, standing in front of a modest house. His eyes were bright and his smile seemed to radiate hope and innocence. James's heart skipped a beat. The house looked remarkably similar to his own. This boy, the historian explained, was part of the family who lived here decades ago. Based on the letters and the objects we found, it seems they treasured their home and each other very much. They wanted to preserve these items, possibly for a future generation to remember them by. James held the photograph carefully, as if touching it too roughly might shatter the memories within. He could almost hear the boy's laughter echoing through the walls of the house. He imagined the child running across the yard, playing with friends, and learning about life with curiosity and joy. The historian then showed him a small journal, its leather cover worn and soft from handling over many years. James opened it, feeling a sense of reverence. The first entry he read described a family dinner, where simple dishes were shared and laughter filled the room. Another entry spoke of a snowfall, with children building snowmen and parents joining in the fun. The words were ordinary, yet they painted vivid pictures of warmth, love, and connection. As James read, he felt a deep emotional pull. These were not just stories. They were lessons in living fully, cherishing small moments and valuing family. He realized that despite the decades that separated him from this family, their experiences resonated with him. The emotions they felt, the joys and challenges of daily life, were universal. One particular letter caught his attention. It was from the father to his children. "Always remember that even in ordinary moments there is beauty. Treasure your family, your friends, and the small joys that life offers. These are the things that will stay with you forever." James's eyes blurred with tears. The words seemed to reach across time, connecting him to the writer in a way he could hardly explain. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for this unintended gift, a reminder of the importance of love, family, and living with purpose. The historian noticed his reaction. "These objects are powerful," she said softly. "They remind us that ordinary lives are full of extraordinary moments. This family wanted to preserve those moments, and now you are part of that story." James nodded, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion he felt. He realized that the hatch, the tunnel, and the crates had not only revealed a hidden past but had also opened his heart to new perspectives. He felt a renewed sense of connection, not just to the people who had lived here but to his own life and the moments he often took for granted. He spent the afternoon examining more of the items. There were small toys, carefully worn from years of play, handwritten notes filled with encouragement and love, and even a tiny pendant that seemed to carry a special significance. Each object told a story, and each story added to the tapestry of life that had unfolded in this house long before him. As James handled the objects, he imagined the family who had cherished them. He pictured the parents teaching their children lessons about kindness, resilience, and the beauty of ordinary life. He imagined the children laughing, playing, and growing, surrounded by love and care. The realization that these experiences had once existed in the very house he now called home filled him with awe. By evening, James felt emotionally exhausted, but deeply fulfilled. He had glimpsed lives that had been preserved beneath his driveway, lives filled with hope, love, and purpose. He understood that the hatch was more than just a hidden passage. It was a connection to the past, a bridge that linked him to the human experiences that had unfolded long ago. That night, James sat on his porch, holding the small pendant he had seen in the crate. The neighborhood was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. He thought about the boy in the photograph, the letters, the journals, and the toys. He thought about the lessons they carried and the way they had touched his heart. James made a silent promise to himself. He would honor these stories, cherish the lessons they contained, and carry forward the spirit of the family who had lived here. He would live his life with awareness, gratitude, and love, remembering that the ordinary moments were often the most extraordinary. As he looked at the driveway, he felt a sense of peace. The hatch, once a source of fear and curiosity, had become a symbol of connection, history, and emotional depth. He realized that discovering the past had not only revealed the lives of others, but had also illuminated his own path, reminding him to value what truly mattered. In the days that followed, James continued to explore the contents of the tunnel under the guidance of the historians. Each new letter, photograph, and object deepened his understanding and strengthened his emotional bond with the family of the past. He found himself reflecting on his own life, on the relationships he had, the memories he was creating, and the ways he could ensure that his own experiences were meaningful and lasting. The hatch, the tunnel, and the hidden belongings had become more than a curiosity. They had become a mirror, reflecting the importance of human connection, love, and the passage of time. And as James stood there, looking at the driveway and imagining the lives that had once unfolded beneath it, he knew that this was just the beginning of a journey that would teach him more about the past, the present, and the heart. That night, James fell asleep with a sense of hope. The stories beneath his driveway had become a source of inspiration, reminding him that even in ordinary lives, extraordinary beauty could be found. He dreamed of letters being written, laughter echoing through the walls, and a family whose love had transcended time to touch his own heart. And as he slept, James knew that his life had changed. The emotional connection he felt to the past would guide him, teach him, and remind him that every life, every moment was valuable, precious, and worth cherishing. The weeks following the discovery of the hatch were unlike anything James had ever experienced. What had begun as a strange, unsettling mystery had grown into an emotional journey that touched every part of his life. The tunnel beneath his driveway, the crates, the letters, photographs, and journals, all of it had revealed the lives of a family who had lived decades before him. Their stories, so carefully preserved, had become part of his own life in ways he could never have imagined. Each morning, James would step outside and glance at the hatch. It no longer felt threatening or mysterious. Instead, it had become a symbol of connection and memory. The authorities and historians had carefully cataloged the items found in the tunnel, ensuring that nothing would be lost. Some of the letters and photographs were being preserved in the local historical society, while others James was allowed to keep for personal reflection. He found himself drawn to the objects more and more. Each one was a reminder of ordinary moments that carried extraordinary meaning. A small toy train, worn smooth from years of play, reminded him of the joy in childhood. A faded photograph of a family picnic evoked warmth and togetherness. The letters, with their careful words of love and encouragement, taught him lessons about hope, patience, and resilience. James began to change. He noticed himself becoming more patient, more appreciative of the small moments in life, and more aware of the people around him. He spent more time with neighbors, offering help where he could, and taking time to listen to their stories. Friends who visited remarked on a new calmness and kindness in his demeanor, a quiet depth that hadn't been there before. One evening, as the sun set, casting long orange shadows across the driveway, James sat on the porch holding the delicate pendant he had seen in the crates. It was small and simple, yet it felt heavy with meaning. He thought of the family who had placed it in the hidden tunnel, perhaps to keep it safe for the future. He could almost imagine the mother or father holding it close, feeling its importance, and imagining a time when someone would find it. James felt a deep connection to them, a sense that their lives and his own were intertwined across time. The past was no longer distant or abstract. It was living inside him, shaping the way he thought, felt, and acted. He realized that discovering the tunnel and its contents had not just been about uncovering objects. It had been about discovering human emotion, love and connection that transcended decades. Over time, James decided to honor the family properly. He began to document what he had learned in a personal journal. He wrote about the letters, the photographs, the toys, and the small items, recording the stories they told. He reflected on how ordinary life, with all its small moments and challenges, held extraordinary meaning. His journal became a bridge, connecting his life to the lives of the people who had come before him. Neighbors and friends soon became curious about his work. James would share the stories he had uncovered, showing photographs, letters, and small objects. People were fascinated, and some even shared their own stories of family history and personal memories. James realized that the discovery of the tunnel had sparked more than his own reflection. It was inspiring others to look at their lives differently, to treasure memories and to connect with the past. One particular afternoon, James revisited the hatch. The tunnel below was now safely secured, but he could not resist the urge to stand over it and imagine the hidden world beneath. He pictured the family moving carefully down the stairs, placing letters, photographs, and small objects in the crates. He imagined the boy playing with his toys, the parents tending the garden, and the laughter that must have filled the house. James felt a sense of gratitude that he could not fully express. He realized that this experience had given him something rare, a sense of continuity, a feeling that he was part of a larger story that stretched across time. The past was not gone. It lived in him, in the lessons he had learned and in the way he now viewed life. As the weeks passed, James began making small changes in his own life. He started writing letters to his friends and family, documenting daily experiences and sharing thoughts and memories he had often kept to himself. He took more time to notice the beauty in simple moments, sunsets, the laughter of children, quiet mornings with a cup of coffee. He began photographing small details of life, imagining that someday someone else might look at them and feel the same connection he now felt to the past. One day, while reviewing some of the letters he had kept, James came across one that had been tucked away at the bottom of a crate. It was written by the mother in the family, and it read, "Life is fleeting, but love lasts forever. The moments we share, the kindness we show, the care we give, these are the treasures that never fade. Guard them, cherish them, and pass them on to those who come after you." The words struck James deeply. He understood now that the tunnel, the hidden objects, and the memories were all reminders of what mattered most. Life was not about material wealth or fame. It was about connection, love, and the moments that created meaning. James decided to take action. Inspired by the story of the family, he began volunteering in the community. He visited schools, sharing the lessons he had learned about history, family, and the importance of cherishing small moments. He helped local organizations preserve historical items and encouraged young people to document their own stories. In doing so, he realized that he was carrying forward the legacy of the family beneath his driveway. Their story had become his story, and he was passing it on. The pendant he had found became a symbol for him. He wore it on a chain around his neck, not as a decoration, but as a reminder. Each time he saw it, he remembered the lives it had touched, the lessons it had taught, and the love that had endured through time. It reminded him to live fully, to love deeply, and to cherish the people around him. One quiet evening, as James sat on his porch watching the sunset, he reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. The ordinary driveway that had once been mundane was now a symbol of history, connection, and discovery. He thought about the family who had lived there before him and felt a sense of peace. knowing that their memories were preserved and honored. He realized that fear, curiosity, and wonder had led him to a profound understanding of life. The initial panic he had felt when he first discovered the hatch had transformed into awe, gratitude, and purpose. The experience had taught him that every life, no matter how ordinary it may seem, holds value and meaning. James also began to share the story with his own children. He told them about the hidden tunnel, the letters, the photographs, and the toys. He encouraged them to cherish their own memories, to document their experiences, and to honor the lives of those who had come before them. In doing so, he passed on the lessons of love, connection, and the beauty of ordinary life to the next generation. Months later, the local historical society completed its catalog of the items found in the tunnel. They praised James for his cooperation and for recognizing the value of the discovery. The items were preserved carefully, some displayed for the public, others stored for research. James felt proud, knowing that he had helped protect a piece of history and honor a family whose lives had touched him so profoundly. Despite the official work being done, James's personal journey continued. He continued writing, reflecting, and learning from the letters and photographs he had kept. He spoke to friends and neighbors about the experience, sharing the emotional lessons he had learned. People were inspired by his story, and many began to look at their own lives and histories with renewed appreciation. James had come to understand that life was a chain of connections, a series of moments that linked the past, present, and future. The hidden tunnel had been more than a physical space. It was a metaphor for the unseen threads that connect people across time. And now, he felt a sense of responsibility to honor those connections in his own life. On a particularly quiet evening, James stood by the driveway one last time. The hatch was now secured, the tunnel catalogued and preserved. He ran his hand over the metal cover, feeling its cool surface. He thought about the family who had hidden their treasures here, about the lessons they had left behind, and about how those lessons had changed him. He whispered a quiet thank you, not just for the discovery, but for the emotional journey it had sparked. The experience had reminded him of what truly mattered: love, connection, gratitude, and the memories we create with those we care about. James walked back into his house, feeling a sense of fulfillment and peace. The world outside remained the same: quiet streets, trees swaying in the breeze, and neighbors going about their daily routines. But James saw it differently. Life was no longer ordinary. Every moment held meaning, every connection mattered, and every memory was a treasure. As he prepared for bed that night, James glanced at the pendant he wore around his neck. It caught the light, reflecting a soft glow. He smiled, knowing that it symbolized more than the past. It symbolized hope, love, and the promise of a life lived fully. James fell asleep with a sense of calm and contentment. The hatch beneath his driveway would always be there, a reminder of the discovery, the family, and the lessons he had learned. But more importantly, he knew that he had grown, changed, and found a deeper understanding of life itself.